Take another look at the flip Dave Villwock coming up the backstretch just to the very left of your picture. And you'll see him bounce once, comes back down, bounces again, launches off a roller, it looks like, and he went almost completely over twice.
I was very concerned while he was in the air about the fact that one of the yellow boats
Just another look, Steve,
right under him, and Dave Villwock almost landed right on J.W. Myers, or it may have been the Theoret's boat, but you'll see a yellow boat go very nearly right under Dave while he's in the air. Right here. Now remember, he can control the attitude of the boat with that front canard a little bit. Right here, he realizes he's getting high.
Bounced again and then up and go.
Foot pedal down, not enough wing to control the boat. He's in the air. Now watch the yellow boat come here, almost go right under him, and that could have been another near disaster. So we've dodged a couple of bullets here so far this morning. I guess it's afternoon by now with the delays we've had.
It is, and that will put us back in another delay at this point because we have not yet gotten Heat 2A even underway after a full lap.
You got any plans for Monday?
We may be right here, and if the race is run, we will be right here. That's where we're going.
And once again, we want to go down to the pit area and you, Scott, whenever you have any news from anyone down there. We know that the driver is okay. He's helping with the rescue of the boat, but they will go check him out in the medical trailer. Sometimes the adrenaline gets flown and you're not in quite as good a shape as you think. It'll simply look like one of those situations. Dave runs the boat very loose anyway, and he controls the attitude of the boat with that front canard, and I'm sure the first couple of bounces we saw were him bringing the boat back down with that front canard, but then it deflected off of a wave, and once the front end gets high enough, the canard no more has an effect, and you get the wind under the boat and over you go.
A minute ago, we saw Chris Bertram getting out of the boat back in the pits, the U9 Jackson Sports Bar. The other boats back in the pit area as well as they tow the Elstrom Manufacturing Miss Elam Plus back down toward the pit area. They'll take an assessment of, there you go with the Jackson Sports Bar, and Chris is still standing on the deck there waiting to get towed all the way back to the pits.
Now we will, unless they delay this because they decide the conditions had something to do with that situation, they will put Heat 2B in the water. Heat 2A will obviously have to be rerun. They were in the first lap when the accident occurred. In normal conditions, we would show you Heat 2B next and then a rerun of Heat 2A, but the discussion is going to be among the officials, did the conditions have something to do with that incident, and is it safe to race out here? I'm sure that that's a hot topic right now among the officials.
You can see the Elam Plus, you can see the canard, lower right portion of your screen, that wing that Steve was talking about just a moment ago, and it is completely dislodged from the right-hand side of the boat, still connected to the left sponson, but it is broken, obviously, completely in half.
On the other hand, the cowling is still on the boat. You hardly ever flip an unlimited hydro and keep the cowling on it, which means it did not bounce on the roof, which is probably one of the reasons Dave is feeling as good as he is. Depending on that first blow where the boat landed on the transom, that would have done some damage. We can see that the wing is gone, but the plastic parts of the boat are easily replaceable. The question is going to be, what kind of shape is the hull in? We're going to show you one more time now this accident which has caused a stoppage of Heat 2A.
Big bounce there, another big bounce.
And you're into the wind, you catch a gust under the boat, and here you go. And again, a very near miss, as we believe it's Jean Theoret in the Beacon Plumbing coming by right there, and the angles may be fooling us. He may have been to our toward us a lane or two.
Scott Reister down in the pits right now with Jean Theoret.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Jean Theoret right here, as you mentioned, was right behind Dave Villwock. Give us a description of what you saw and what it looked like from your point of view.
Well, I got a little bit of a bad start. Dave was in front of me on the start, and we came out of the corner I was maybe 500 feet behind him, and I was starting to gain on him, and I guess he got a gust of wind, and the thing just flipped right beside me.
What did it look like when you saw him go up? How bad did you think it was? Are you surprised that he's okay?
Well, I'm surprised, but I am thankful, very thankful. Thank God he's okay, and praise the Lord for that, because flip overs are always so dangerous and so rattling. So, but the water is pretty rough, so it's got to be careful out there.
Now I know Ken Muscatel took that practice lap to try to see how smooth it was out there. Does this mean that maybe it wasn't that smooth after all, and does this concern you for the rest of the day?
Well, my concern is always the winds, the gusts. When you have a stable wind, that's not a problem. You can deal with it. But the gusts of wind, you don't see it. It just happens. Maybe that's what happened today. If you got a gust of wind, and then it tipped him over.
All right. Well, Jean Theoret, you're okay. We'll try to sort this one out and see what comes next here at the Atomic Cup. Back to you guys.
Water's looking pretty good at this point, actually.
Imagine that you are Jean Theoret, and you're going up the backstretch on the Pasco side about 200 miles per hour. You have Dave Villwock to your right. You're doing everything you can to catch him, and suddenly he is airborne. You don't know where he's going to land. That has to be a pretty scary moment, and that could have turned out a whole lot worse than it did. A little more action of the scary side, Mark, than we want to have to start the day here.
Yep, we don't want to see those kinds of things, but looking out at the river right now, the river is laid down a little bit. The wind seems to have laid down, at least on the river. It's probably the best conditions we've seen so far today. We started that heat with a little bit of wind, but if you look out at the river right now, it actually doesn't look too bad.
We were scheduled to run heat 2B at 120 or 125, so it would be going in the water here fairly soon, and that's something Scott could check for us down in the pit area. If they are putting the boats in the water for heat 2B, that's a pretty good sign that we're going to try to get things on schedule here and keep going.
Steve, we've got an aerial view of Dave Villwock's crash, and let's go to that, take a look.
Now this will be interesting. This is from the helicopter above the event, so you'll see the lanes the boats are in.
Well, actually, it's this is an after shot.
Okay, this is okay, this is just the wreckage. Now we can get a look at the boat, though. You know, it really doesn't look bad, but cracks can be a big problem that you can't see from very far away. You really have to have the boat in the pit area on the trailer before you can do any kind of an inspection. Hard to imagine that it could land on the transom that hard and not do some major damage.
Looks like the wing down in the lower right-hand corner, the other pieces of debris from the boat, and obviously the front canard, which goes completely between the two sponsons, is broken, and we saw that as the boat was being towed back in as well.
But again, wings, plastic, are not a major problem. Those are easily replaceable, and the question is going to be, what is the actual integrity of the hull when they get it back to the pits? They are pulling it in front of us. Doesn't appear to be taking on water dramatically. The back end might be riding just a little bit low, but that quite often happens when they are towing a boat. So we won't try to guess on the condition of the U1 Elam Plus until it's back in the pit area and we can get a closer look at it.
You know, last year at Seafair, Dave ran through somebody's rooster tail, snapped the canard dead in half, and then they brought it back to the pits. In about 20 minutes they had a brand new one put back on the boat. So that part of it is easily fixable. They messed up the tail feathers pretty good, so they'll have to do something about those. And take a look at the boat, and as you mentioned, Steve, boats can have cracks in them that you can't necessarily see right away. They'll go through the boat and take a look and make sure that the integrity of the hull of the boat is still there.
Very, very rarely do you see an unlimited hydroplane or even a smaller boat flip and have the cowling intact the way this one is, which is I'm sure that's one of the reasons Dave is feeling as good as he is. Apparently the boat did not land on the roof at any point, because the cowling would then be gone, and that's usually when the drivers really get jarred. So we're going to have a little bit of a break here before we find out whether Heat 2B can go on the water as scheduled. We'll have all that and more, so stay with us in our live coverage of the 2006 Atomic Cup. Everything we've seen of the boat, including this fairly tight shot right here, looks pretty good. It's not one of those busted a sponson off type of jobs, at least, and the wing being gone is fairly superficial. The wings in the back are easily replaceable. They have spares in the truck. Perhaps not beyond possibility that we'd see this boat again later today.
Well, we've seen boats flip and come back in the past. In 1997, Mark Evans was up the backstretch going through the north turn in Seattle, flipped the boat. There were some other problems that delayed the race a little while later. They turned the boat over. It was actually upside down. They turned that boat over, dried it out. I understand using a hair dryer for some of the electrical equipment, put the boat back in the race, and it ended up winning the race back in '97 over in Seattle. And they Leland Fleet now calls that boat Flipper, and actually Mark owns that boat.
The famous Flip and Win. We do know that our schedule has been set back a little bit again. We were going to run 2B at 120. It's now 125. The big clock that the drivers look at as they come down the front stretch is just to our right, and it is set at 9:59. They normally hit that at the 5 to the 5. So we are at least 10 minutes away from the start of Heat 2B. and we will probably get an update from the officials now that they have the ELAM back in the pit area safely. Perhaps they can put the 2B boats in the water and show us some more racing. Perhaps take you out for the weekend. Right there, I know you're seeing a lot of wreckage because you're seeing pipes and shredded plastic in the back end where the tail feathers are supposed to be. But look at the hull itself, and it just doesn't look too bad, Mark.
Yeah, looks okay. The engine looks okay. Even the tailpipe didn't get mashed down.
You know, that's a good point, because normally when you flip a boat, you fry a turbine engine. Once that hot engine hits the cold water, it's history. I don't think that one ever got wet.
Nope.
Because the boat landed on the tail and then flipped onto the bottom of the boat, so it was right side up pretty much during the whole operation, except for the part where it was 80 feet off the river and doing a 360. If you watch this again right here now, presume that you are Dave Villwock in the boat. You're upside down, you're right side up, you land on your transom, and then the boat goes the right direction because it lands on the bottom of the boat rather than the top. Usually in a flip like this, at some point, the top of the boat impacts with the water, causes a lot of structural damage, and fries the engine. The engine is still high and dry through this entire flip, which saves the Elstrom family about $50,000. So they had a little stroke of luck there, and possibly a boat that can be repaired and put back in this race. We'll have to see.